Let's take a look at Jon Stewart with The Daily Show. He came back, not this week, but the week before, and made a splash. I was really excited to see him back. Jon Stewart was one of the reasons, if not one of the big reasons, that I started getting more and more interested in news and politics and current events and stuff like that. And he was fairly moderate to left-leaning back then. And then when he got off The Daily Show itself went far left. He went far left. And then when he came back last week, seemed like he may have found his footing a little bit with the more of the moderate centrist, still leaning left, but maybe pulled back over to the right a little bit. And I was excited. He went after Biden as well as Trump, and it was a lot more balanced. And the left didn't like it, and we did talk about that in the last episode, where the left didn't like that and kind of went after him a little bit. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. Here's his second night back, and let's see how that went.
Quite frankly, the response to the first show last Monday was universally glowing.
Jon Stewart is facing massive backlash from Democrats over his comments about Joe Biden. Oberman tweeted, "Well, after 9 years away, there's nothing else to say to the both side is fraud Jon Stewart bashing Biden, except please make it another 9 years." Christy Jackson tweeted, "Sorry, but I won't be watching you either."
Okay. Maybe not universal. But that was on Twitter. Everything on Twitter gets a backlash. I've seen Twitter tell labradoodles to go themselves. Labradoodles. I just think it's better to deal head on with what's an apparent issue to people. I mean, we're just talking here.
And Mary Trump tweeting, "Not only is Stewart's both sides are the same rhetoric not funny, it's a potential disaster for democracy."
It's one show. It was just one show. It was 20 minutes. I did 20 minutes of one show. But I guess, as the famous saying goes, democracy dies in discussion. But look, I have sinned against you. I'm sorry. It was never my intention to say out loud what I saw with my eyes and then brain. I can do better. I can have learning. I can have it.
Okay, so he's picking at himself a little bit, obviously, but he's also clearly responding to the people on the left, same people we talked about last week, Keith Olbermann for sure. They've been criticizing him, and it's been widespread. So not just the few that we cover, which are the same he covered, but there's been more outlets talking about it and really giving him a hard time for being balanced, which again, I know the left is not used to that. But over the course of this episode, this most recent one, he's started to kind of fall back in line a little bit, lockstep with the left. Not as much balance to this episode as previous one. And it's sad to see, because again, I did look up to Jon Stewart, specifically Jon Stewart on The Daily Show. When he got off, no, and when he left The Daily Show, no. So specifically Jon Stewart on The Daily Show really had an impact on me. And I hate to see that the left just is a cult in so many ways, that they pull you along and you have to go with them or they will out you. If you're not far left to them, you are far right. Even if you're moderate left or even a little conservative, anything that's not far left is far right to them. And Jon was attacked, and Jon realized it, and he's going to get back in line. We'll see how that goes for him long term. I'm pulling for him because I would love to see him recenter himself, as much as possible. But let's look at some more of this episode. I'm going to call a couple things out that were a little off.
Professor, tell me, what is step one in delivering world-class fealty to power?
Here's why we're doing it. First, because it's our job. We're in journalism.
Lie about what your job is.
We're in journalism. Our duty is to inform people.
Lie about what your duty is.
Okay, so right there, Jon was getting on the same ship that all the other lefties were about Tucker Carlson when he went over to Russia to interview Putin. So many of them were saying he's not a journalist, it's not true. Other news outlets haven't offered to go over there, and they said, yes, we have, even though none of them have followed through with it or were granted the interviews. They just may have offered and nothing happened. And that may be true, but everybody just wanted to get on this anti-Tucker deal where they called him, all kinds of names except for a journalist, and said he just was not a journalist. I would beg to differ. The definition of journalism is the collection and editing of news for presentation through the media, the public press, an academic study concerned with the collection and editing of news or the management of a news medium. So that there's a generalization of what journalism is. By generalization, I mean the actual definition. Tucker's absolutely a journalist. You may like it or not. He's not on CNN or NBC or CBS or Fox anymore. He's on Twitter, or X as it's called now. But his following and his viewership far outpaces these other networks, and they're just mad. They ain't him, so they hate him. So they're going to do everything everything they can do to discredit him and knock him down and make him seem unreliable. The truth is he's out there doing so much more than they are, and they're just mad about it. So let's keep going into the episode here with Jon Stewart, see what else he calls out. You're going to see some stuff. I actually agree with him a little bit on some of his criticisms, but he just keeps playing to the left on a lot of this. So let's check this next part out.
So we thought it would be interesting to take a look at a contemporary, modern-day, 2024 Russian grocery store. This is the grocery cart escalator. This is designed, I'm figuring this out now, where the wheels don't move, they lock on the grocery cart escalator. Look, Ma, no hands.
Okay, Forrest. An escalator for the grocery cart, and the doors open automatically. Oh, Mother Russia.
Russia is famous for its bread, which is one thing I can assess pretty well. Look at that. It's fresh, too. Look at that. Oh, come on.
This guy really likes bread. I hate to think what would have happened if he had found a bagel.
So look, I get it. Okay, it's funny. Tucker's a little over the top with some stuff. I get it. He exaggerates the excitement levels and stuff. I mean, I do love the smell of fresh bread, no doubt about it. But then again, that's probably why I'm fat. But he's a happy-go-lucky guy. He's never really a negative guy that I've ever seen. So maybe the left isn't used to seeing somebody being happy and cheerful and upbeat, especially about their job. And to be fair, I'm not really either. But I get it 100%. Look, Jon made it very, very clear a long time ago whenever he went on CNN, NBC, any of these news networks to talk about politics and the real news. He said, we're a comedy show that does the news. And that makes total sense to everybody who understands that. And I understand that. Jon's reaction was funny, that his whole job is to pull out the funny. And he did that. I'm not going to criticize him for that. But I will say that that is a tactic that the left uses a lot, is when they don't have an argument against what you're saying, they start going after your mannerisms or your looks or something like that. Something that's just stupid. So it was a stupid funny, but it was funny. I'll give Jon a pass on that 100%. But we're going to go look at some more. And this is where we're going to start getting into I'm going to start getting into some agreements with Jon. He still comes across as a little bit of an extreme lefty here toward the end, and definitely a hypocrite, but I'll point that out and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. Let's go look at a little bit more of this video.
We didn't pay any attention to costs as we were just putting in the cart what we would actually eat over a week. And we all came in around $400, about $400. It was $104 US here. And coming to a Russian grocery store, the heart of evil, and seeing what things cost and how people live, it will radicalize you against our leaders. That's how I feel anyway, radicalized.
radicalized. And it will radicalize you unless you understand basic economics. See, $104 for groceries sounds like a great bargain unless you realize Russians earn less than $200 a week. But that's the kind of context that what did you call yourself earlier? A journalist would have provided. But here's the reality. You know all this because you aren't as dumb as your face would have us believe.
All right, right there, I actually 100% agree with Jon. I think Tucker, again, a little over the top with his dramatization here of radicalized. The expenses that you're going to incur in other countries are always going to be different. The translation from their, money system to ours, and just overall the percentage ratio is going to always be different. And I don't think this is any exception. I actually pulled up some numbers, and we'll look at something real quick here, but I did pull some numbers and I had a spreadsheet going. I was going to pull all this and that out, but I actually found a really good article that broke that down. I won't dig into every last detail of it, but let's look at this real quick. This is from Newsweek, and it actually came out after this interview. I think in an attempt to kind of debunk it a little bit. But, well, let's start up here. How average salary in Russia compares to the U.S. By the way, any articles I ever use or videos or anything like that I reference or I use, if you see me pull it up, there's going to be a direct link to that in the description below. Definitely check that out and just make sure that I'm not skipping over something and you're able to fact check me. I totally believe in being transparent, which of course is something that most modern media doesn't do, but I want to make sure I do that as best I can. Still getting over this cough from the holidays. It's weird. All right. How average salary in Russia compares to U.S. Scrolling down here, Tucker Carlson was mocked on social media this week over his surprise that groceries in Russia cost less than in the U.S. The former Fox News host has been posting videos filmed in Moscow following his recent interview with Russian President Vladimir Putin. In one video recorded at Moscow supermarket, Carlson expressed his disbelief about the cost of living, saying he was legitimately angry about how much less groceries cost compared to the U.S. I went from amused to legitimately angry, Carlson said. There's that look. So we are guessing that what this would cost. Everybody here is from the United States and buys groceries, and we didn't pay any attention, yada, yada, yada. We saw that. And it came up to 104. They thought it was going to be 400. Here's what I want to skip down to is, did I skip over it? Here we go. As they and others, I skipped that part, I'm sorry. Carlson did not seem to consider U.S. wages and American purchasing power. According to the latest figures available from Russia's Federal State Statistics Service, the average monthly wage in Russia was about $787, as they can pull it back in November. By comparison, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that in the last quarter of 2023, the median weekly earnings of Americans was $1,114. I don't think I kept this up. Maybe I did. Boom. Move this over where you can see it. Okay, don't know how well you can see that. I thought I got rid of it. But basically, there's like a 17% of our income is what they make. So on a monthly or weekly or whatever basis you want to look at it, their income is about 17%, not less, but just 17% of what ours is. Okay. And then we go down here, we look at the groceries. They were about 26% less than what he thought they were going to be. And when you compare our what it would have been in our money versus their money. And again, this was just meant to be rough. I wasn't going to show you this, but basically, if the groceries came out to be what Tucker and them thought it was going to be, it would have been roughly 35% of U.S. weekly income, 35% of that average that they were just citing. It wasn't, it was $104. And that comes out to 53% of the average Russian weekly income. So percentage wise, which is always what I care about, it's significantly more. And the reason I like the percentage portion of it is because we can always point to things like inflation. I covered this a couple of years ago, and inflation, although it increases, it impacts the lower class and middle class significantly more than it does the upper class. Even though they may be buying more stuff, the percentage of their overall wealth or income or whatever only goes up a tiny increment compared to what it does for us, whereas we were maybe spending 15, 20, 30% of our income at the grocery store. Now we're spending close to 40 or 45. And those are just rough numbers off the top of my head. I honestly don't know what we're spending now in comparison, but my point is they jump up drastically for us compared to wealthier people. And that said, that's why I use percentages when I look at this thing. So Tucker did not take that into account. Tucker should have taken that into account. The people that Tucker works with somebody should have called him out. So Jon's 100% right on that. Let's look at one more thing he's right on, but he's going to start letting his hypocrisy show.
How does Russia have a subway station that normal people use to get to work and home every single day that's nicer than anything in our country? There's no graffiti, there's no filth, there are no foul smells.
That's a nice subway. That's a very... Although, to be fair to the New York City system, it was constructed in 1904 out of urinal cakes by the great engineer Giuseppe Pissa Everywhere. But point taken, it's a very nice subway. Perhaps if your handlers had allowed, you would have seen there is a hidden fee to your cheap groceries and orderly streets. Ask Alexei Navalny or any of his supporters.
In Vladimir Putin's Russia, political repression is everywhere. And hundreds have been arrested for daring to honor Navalny so publicly.
Right. Because the difference between our urinal-caked, chaotic subways and your candelabraed, beautiful subways is the literal price of freedom.
And again, this is where I'm going to, I won't say 100% agree with Jon, but more so agree with Jon on this one as well. Yes, Russia obviously is out of control with their police force and Putin in general and all that good stuff, right? But if you take a comparison, which is a fair one, to New York City, they are trying to get the cops off the streets. They're trying to get rid of them. They're allowing more crime, no cash bail, stuff like that. There should be a happy medium, and I think there probably was when you look back at Giuliani being mayor of New York City and what was cleaned up there with the mob and everything like that. You've got to punish crime, but you don't go overboard like Russia. And I'm not celebrating Russia in this video at all. In fact, I'm absolutely condemning Putin and how he is and the murders or allowing of death of Navalny or anybody that he does. He's not a great guy. You may say great leader because he's done X, Y, Z, and that's great. That's fine. I've got no dog in that fight, but I'm not going to support the guy. I'll if anything, I'm condemning him and everybody and the Russian government that carries out these kind of things. Here's the thing, and this is really the point I want to drive home. Yes, Jon Stewart is correct. You have to give up your freedoms. You have to be under attack to have certain things that they have. This is applicable across the board for other countries. We see especially the left pointing to other countries for health care, for universal basic income, for gun restrictions, all kinds of stuff. One of their favorite ones to point to is our neighbor to the north, Canada. So although Jon didn't say this specifically, I want to remind you, Jon is a talking mouthpiece for the left. 100%. He may drift over a little bit, kind of like Bill Maher, but he's absolutely a lefty, and they all are on board with this idea that Canada's got more stuff together than we do as far as some of those socialist or, liberal socialism, whatever they want to call it, that they like. Let's look at a couple things real quick, though, and I want to point out the hypocrisy in what Jon, as a lefty, is saying. All right, here's an article that came out. A Canadian Catholic student arrested, charged after saying women are different. Attorney James Kitchen says options for legal resources are limited. This is out of Canada. This is a lack of freedom of speech in Canada. Now, again, remember, they want to say Canada in so many ways is liberal or socialist or has social programs, and they're like this beacon or bastion of hope for the things that they want to do. And of course, every time that Trump is close to being elected or something doesn't go their way or Elon buys Twitter, they're all going to move to Canada. They never have, never will, but that's what they say because that's where they want to go. And that's cool because they have everything they want. Freedom of speech is something they don't have. You are forced to buy into, like we've seen it with Jordan B. Peterson, or Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, excuse me. We've seen it with like the pronoun game. I don't buy into that. If somebody wants to be whatever they want to be, a man, a woman, or whatever, that's cool on your own, but don't force me to buy into your delusion. Don't force me to play along with you. And that's what Canada does. By force, forces people to participate. You lose that freedom. Here's some more loss of freedom in Canada. Protesting is not permitted. This is back from the Freedom Convoy, the truckers. Canada's Trudeau defends use of emergency powers in Freedom Convoy protest. Trudeau vows to freeze anti-mandate protesters' bank accounts. That kind of stuff doesn't fly in the U.S. Why doesn't it fly in the U.S.? Because we have freedom of speech. It's protected by our Constitution. And what is it protected with? Well, it's packed up right there by the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. Okay? And the left is all about safe spaces and where they're not offended and hate speech, which there's no such thing as. They want to get rid of guns. They're single-handedly trying to demolish the Constitution or rewrite it in a way where it's not offensive and it doesn't hurt their feelings and you know, it's a perfect happy world as long as we make believe with the same things they do. Now, I am a conservative. I'm a right-leaning dude, but at the same time, I lean left on some stuff, and I don't hate anybody, and I wish the best for everybody. But as a country, I love that we have our freedoms. And I don't want to give them up to have better health care or a no firearms way to protect ourselves or anything like that. Speaking of no firearms, let's look at this one. This is an article right here from Buckeye Farms Association. It says Trudeau's real change anti-gun, Canada's violent crime homicide rates soar. And it talked about how he ran off of getting rid of guns. And I think there's some numbers down here. According to the federal agency, Canadians are also experienced higher rates of nonviolent and property crimes in 2022. Rates of shoplifting went up 31%, minor theft up 10%, and breaking and entering up 4%. Increased, and a 24% increase in motor vehicle theft was 17% higher than in 2019. In another disturbing development, Stats Can data shows the youth crime rate in 2022 jumped by almost 18% from the year before. And this is talking about what happened when they got rid of guns. They didn't improve the crime rate. It actually increased the crime rate. Let's see, 2020 gun ban. Yeah. So this has to do with the 2020 gun ban that they did. The crime rates go up. Look, people are going to find a way. It's not the guns that commit the crimes. It's the criminals that commit the crimes. So in this country, I know the left doesn't like it, but hey, we have the right to bear arms. You know, not just against a tyrannical government, which we, you know, who knows when that day is going to come, but for our very own safety. You know, it's the only or the greatest neutralizer a woman has from being ard. You know what I'm saying. You know, raped, so to speak. You know, it's what they have to defend themselves. It's a neutralizer. It's an equalizer between them and a larger guy. If my wife and child are home alone and somebody knocks in the door, bang, bang goes the boom, boom stick. They know what to do. You know, if I'm not here, they know exactly what to do. And if they can't do it, little pit bull boy back here, he'll jump in there too. But we have that freedom for so many different reasons. And they want to get rid of certain guns or styles of guns and all this thing. And it doesn't make sense. It's not working in Canada. It's not working in other places. Another thing that the left is really big on. Sorry, John, I'm not singling you out specifically, but because you're a talking a mouthpiece for them. Okay, I'm just pointing out that while you can say Russia is awful because they have all this nice stuff, but back it with all this negative stuff, I just want to point out some other stuff. All right, what's something else? They praise the Canadian government for their government-funded healthcare system. And they often will say there's nothing wrong with that. Jim Carrey, I remember being on a late night show saying, it was great, it was wonderful, he never had to wait. This article right here from Fraser Institute says Canadians face longest healthcare wait times on record. This is as of December last year. And this is comparing them and other countries. They are the longest. They have the longest wait of anything. Again, just a couple things in here. We won't go through everything, but here's one. Wait times vary considerably across the country. Notably, all 3 maritime provinces report median wait times of more than 1 year. Even in the province with the shortest waits, patients faced a median 21.6 week wait. We also see significant variations between specialties. Patients face considerably longer delays for neurosurgery, 43.5 weeks, compared to radiotherapy, 4.4 weeks. And even here, it's worth noting provincial variation, with the average wait for the radiotherapy in British Columbia, 9.1 weeks, more than twice the national average. No doubt, this was a key factor in the BC government's decision to ship 4,800 British Columbians across the border to receive care in Washington state. Why did they send them over here? Well, because we can take care of them faster, not as long as a wait, because the healthcare system there does not work. I'm sorry. And we could quit acting like Tucker is the worst person in the world. That's the other thing. Jon was not alone in this. The other media attacked him, that he's a traitor. He shouldn't be allowed back in the country. They act like he's the worst person in the world for going and interviewing Putin and giving him a platform, even though they criticize his platform and say he's not really a journalist. They don't really know what they want. So let's keep this in mind. He ain't the first one to talk to Putin. Okay. Yeah, so let's back off of Tucker a little bit. I disagree with him on some things. I wasn't thrilled with some of his takes and the way he presented things necessarily, but he's not wrong to talk to a dictator, leader, ruler, or whomever to try to get the story and try to bring it back to us American citizens, especially since we are indirectly involved in a current conflict that they are. Look, in closing for this segment, let me be very clear. While Tucker's doing his job of journalism, you get to express your criticisms in the freest country in the world that you so often complain about. It may not be perfect and we may get our feelings hurt from time to time, but it damn sure beats literally dying as a result of expressing ourselves, not being able to defend ourselves, or because there's a 6-month wait on an urgent life-saving procedure because we wanted to have a better healthcare system and be more liberal, more socialist like Canada.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out this clip from the Morning Mayhem. Remember, this is just a portion of the full show that comes out every Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. If you hadn't already, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the full shows or these tasty little nuggets.